Can creatine help depression? I've gotten a lot of questions about this recently, so in this video, I'm going to show you the actual human research on creatine supplements as it pertains to depression. I'm going to show you the amount of creatine that was used, the potential side effects, and I'm also going to share with you my thoughts on this research to give you a better idea of whether this is something to take a look at or not. And by the way, if you're here for the very first time, welcome. I've been investigating the research on dietary supplements for over 30 years. I am independent. I don't work for any supplement company or pharmaceutical company either. So let's begin with this paper, which came out in 2007. I believe this might be the very first research paper on depression and creatine supplements. 7 men and women, they have major depression and they're not responding to their antidepressant medications. They're given between 3 and 5 grams of creatine a day, and the study lasts for 4 weeks. And to give you a better idea of what happened, they gave them 3 grams of creatine for the very first week to get them accustomed to the supplement, and then they increased the dose to 5 grams for the rest of the clinical trial. And keep in mind that they took creatine in addition to their antidepressant medications. Also know the study involved 10 people, but 3 dropped out, so only 7 finished the clinical trial. Now, of those 7, 5 of those people showed about a 50% improvement in their clinical depression scores. And these improvements were said to occur quickly, manifesting themselves within just 1 week. What makes this study particularly interesting is that in 2 of the people who stopped taking creatine, they reported that their depression actually seemed to be getting worse. Once they restarted taking the supplement again, they reported an improvement in their depression, giving some evidence that creatine may indeed be having some beneficial effects on feelings of depression. Next up is this paper, which involves 5 teenage girls who have depression. They're taking antidepressant medications, and for 8 weeks, they're given creatine supplements to take alongside those medications. Here also, it's reported that creatine seems to have some additive effect with the medications, helping alleviate depression even more. They also performed brain scans on these young ladies, and it was reported that the supplement increased creatine levels in the brain, and that's relevant because some think that depression may be linked to low cellular energy levels in the brain, and this adds some potential evidence for that. Now, those 2 studies are interesting. However, neither one of them had a placebo group. This next study does, so let's take a look at that now. It's a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial. That's the best kind of study to do. 52 women with major depression are given creatine supplements for 8 weeks. And essentially, the women are broken up into 2 groups. One group takes their normal SSRI medications plus creatine, and the other group takes their normal medications with a placebo. This is a larger trial involving 52 women, however, know that only 39 completed the study. Regardless, this study also reports that adding creatine to antidepressant medications improves depression more than antidepressant medications by themselves. In other words, creatine supplements appear to be helping those antidepressant medications work better. So pretty interesting. Now let's switch gears and take a look at this study, which, in my opinion, wins the prize for the most over-the-top, verbose, keyword stuff clinical trial that I have seen in a long time. Regardless, the study design is good because it lasts 8 weeks, and it is also a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled study. It involves 100 men, and what makes this paper interesting is that these people were not taking antidepressant medications. Rather, this is a paper that combines creatine with cognitive behavioral therapy. The men and women are split up into 2 groups. One group performs cognitive behavioral therapy 2 times per week and takes creatine supplements, and then the other group does that same cognitive behavioral therapy twice a week and takes a placebo. Results revealed that both groups showed improvements in their depression. However, the group that took the creatine showed greater reductions in their depression symptoms. I will point out one issue with this paper, however, and that is they began with 100 people, but 40 of them dropped out, so they really were only analyzing 60. However, this is still a larger clinical trial than we've seen before. I also want to show you this paper, which is a little bit different. It involves 15 women who are taking antidepressant medications, but those medications don't appear to be working. So the researchers give them a cocktail of creatine monohydrate supplements plus 5-hydroxytryptophan, 5-HTP. And the people are instructed to take both these supplements in addition to their medications daily for 8 weeks. And if I were to guess why they chose 5-HTP, well, 5-hydroxytryptophan is a supplement that has been shown to raise serotonin levels, and there is evidence that higher serotonin may play a role in alleviating depression. So it's reported here that the cocktail of creatine and 5-HTP does improve depression. It's reported that the symptoms of depression improved in these people between 60 and 65%. It's also reported that the supplements worked so well that 7 of the 12 people who completed the trial decided to continue taking either creatine, 5-HTP, or both after the study ended. One drawback to the paper is that because they used a combination of creatine and 5-HTP, the study doesn't necessarily prove that creatine by itself has an effect. Nonetheless, it does add to that total body of evidence, and that's the reason I wanted to call it to your attention. Now, if you've been investigating creatine on your own, let me now show you a study that most people don't talk about. Here's the study. It involves 18 men and women with major depression, and for 4 weeks they're given between 5 and 10 grams of creatine a day in addition to their antidepressant meds. These results are quite different. Creatine plus antidepressant medications provided no significant improvement over antidepressant medications and a placebo. To paraphrase the researchers, they state that the supplement provided no real-life response and had no advantages compared to traditional medications. Let me now show you the 10,000-mile view by giving you all these studies in one place to take a look at, and I also threw in a couple other studies that I didn't mention. Now, there's a lot going on with that table, but let me try to clarify things by giving you 5 key points to pay attention to. Number 1, most of these studies are showing improvements in depression when people take creatine supplements. Number 2, most of these trials are using 5 grams a day of creatine monohydrate. Pay attention to that dose. More is not necessarily going to work better. Now, I wouldn't start out with 5 grams if you've never done this before. As a matter of fact, in the studies, they tend to give people less for the very first week to get them used to it, and then they increase the dose. I think that's a wise thing to do, not only with creatine, but with any supplement you're taking that you've never taken before. Always start with less than a company recommends. This is going to give you time to adjust to this new supplement. Also, if side effects were to occur, taking less should help minimize those potential side effects. Number 3, most of these studies are using a specific brand of creatine called Creapure. Creapure is made by a German company who then licenses it out to other companies to use in their supplements. Now, the fact that most of these studies are using a specific brand begs the question, would other brands of creatine work just as well? Generally, I would say yes. However, it's worth pointing out that in the one study I showed you where creatine didn't work, they didn't use Creapure, they used a different brand. Number 4, most of these clinical trials are combining creatine supplements with antidepressant medications. The other side of that coin, however, is that no significant side effects have been reported with creatine combined with antidepressant medications. However, always talk with your doctor before you do that, because there are different classes of antidepressant medications that may not yet have been tested yet. And the 5th thing I want you to keep in your mind is this. Creatine has been studied extensively in the world of exercise, and one of the side effects that has occurred in many of those clinical trials is an increase in body weight. It's not body fat, rather it's an increase in water weight. You're retaining more water. Depending on the study you look at, creatine supplements may cause someone to gain anywhere from maybe 1 to 5 pounds, and this increase in body weight would become noticed after about a month or so. Generally, an increase in water retention is not a big deal for most people. However, I wanted you to be aware of it because it could be quite a surprise to people who are unaware of this potential side effect. Oh, and while we're on the topic, if you have any kidney or liver issues, absolutely talk to your doctor before you take creatine supplements. Now, we're almost done. I want to share with you right now 3 things about the creatine depression research that occurred to me as I was reading these studies. Number 1, none of these studies last a long time. The longest clinical trial I saw was 2 months. The good news, though, is that most of these studies are showing that the benefits of creatine are occurring rather quickly. However, the question I asked myself is, does creatine work long term? Like, for instance, 6 months? Or does the body eventually build up a tolerance to creatine, requiring even a greater dosage? In none of the papers I saw did researchers follow up with people months later to see see if creatine was still working for them. Number two, most of these studies involve women, and that's a bit sexist if you ask me. If I had to put my money on it, I'd probably say creatine probably works similarly in men as it does in women, but I'd like to see more research on that to be sure. And the third thing I wanted to call your attention to, I actually debated whether I was going to bring this up or not, but I thought it was in everybody's best interest to say it rather than not, and that is this. Looking at the research on creatine and depression, many of these studies look sloppy to me. I see mistakes, and quite frankly, I'm surprised that some of these papers passed the peer review process. Normally when a research paper gets published, it has to first go through a peer review process where other competent scientists review the research and how it was done and basically make sure everybody dots their I's and crosses their T's. But when I read these studies, I see problems. For example, let's look at this paper. In this study, they are telling us that they're looking at creatine in an under-resourced area. But they don't actually tell us in the study what that under-resourced area was. And they also didn't tell us what brand of creatine they were using either. And it's the little problems like that that make me wonder if bigger problems with that research might also exist. So coming full circle, is it possible that creatine supplements might be a simple solution for your depression? Well, taking it by itself, I think, is too soon to tell because, again, in many of these clinical trials, they're combining creatine with other things. What I suggest is this. By the time you see this video, it's quite possible that there will be other studies of creatine and depression, and hopefully better studies too. So I think it's in your best interest to talk this over with your doctor and mental health professional to get a better idea of whether creatine supplements are right for you and your specific needs. I hope this video helped you understand creatine and depression better. If it did, do me a favor and share it on social media so your friends can see it too. And I'm also going to pin in the comments all the other supplements for depression that I've done in the past so you can see all those videos and that research as well. So definitely check that out, and I'll see you in the next video.